All right, everybody, welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going where few dare to tread. We are going to the moon. Well, sort of.
Okay, so maybe not literally.
No, not literally. But we are diving deep into a question that's been fueling conspiracy theories for, like, what feels like forever. Did we really land on the moon?
One small step for man, one giant leap for conspiracy theorists, huh?
Exactly. We've got a video here titled, Did We Really Land on the Moon? That lays out some of the most common arguments from people who believe it was all a big Hollywood production.
And let me tell you, some of these arguments are pretty compelling at first glance.
Oh, absolutely. It's easy to get caught up in the mystery. So let's break it down and see if we can separate fact from fiction, shall we?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. First up, the video focuses on that iconic image of the American flag waving proudly on the lunar surface. The conspiracy theorists jump all over this, claiming it's impossible because there's no wind on the moon.
Yeah, that's the one you hear all the time, right? I mean, it seems like a pretty obvious flub if you were trying to fake it.
Right. But it turns out NASA thought about this one ahead of time. They knew a limp flag wouldn't exactly scream victory, so they designed a special flag with a telescoping pole and a horizontal bar across the top.
Clever, right. So even though there's no wind, the flag stays unfurled and gives the illusion of waving in the breeze.
So basically it was all about optics. They wanted that powerful image, and they made sure they got it.
Exactly. It's not so much a scientific error as it is a deliberate choice for a better picture.
Fair enough. But what about the whole shadow thing? The video shows photos from the moon landing where shadows seem to be going in different directions, which they claim is evidence of multiple light sources, like you'd have on a studio set.
Ah, yes, the infamous shadow argument. But this one's easily debunked when you consider perspective and the uneven lunar surface.
Okay, explain it to me like I'm 5, because I'm a little lost.
Sure. Imagine you're looking down a street lined with tall buildings. Because of your perspective, the buildings appear to be leaning towards each other at the top, even though they're actually parallel.
Oh, right, I get that.
It's the same principle on the moon. The surface is covered with craters, hills, and all sorts of bumps and dips, so the shadows cast by those objects can appear distorted depending on the angle of the photo and where the shadow falls. Plus, you have to remember, the sun is the only light source on the moon, and as it moves across the sky, the angle of the shadows changes throughout the day.
Okay, so it's the same sun, just different angles, creating the illusion of multiple light sources.
Okay.
That makes a lot more sense. But there's one more argument that I find particularly intriguing. The missing stars.
Yeah, this one always sparks some debate.
Right. The video points out that there are no stars visible in any of the moon landing photos, which seems odd, considering you'd expect a pitch-black sky filled with stars on the moon.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But it all boils down to photography. Imagine you're trying to take a picture of a dimly lit object with a super bright light right next to it. To capture the dimmer object, you'd need to adjust your camera settings, which would make the bright light even brighter and wash out everything else.
Ah, so it's like when you try to take a picture of someone standing in front of a sunset and they just end up looking like a silhouette.
Precisely. The same thing happened on the moon. The lunar surface, bathed in sunlight, was incredibly bright, and the astronauts' cameras, designed to capture lunar details, used slow-speed film that wasn't sensitive enough to pick up the faint light from distant stars.
So it's not that the stars weren't there, it's just that the camera settings and the brightness of the moon washed them out. Fascinating. Honestly, after taking a closer look at these arguments, it's amazing how easily our perceptions can be swayed, you know?
Absolutely. That's why it's so important to approach information, especially about something as monumental as the moon landing, with a critical eye and a healthy dose of skepticism.
Totally. It's like before this deep dive, I kind of took those conspiracy theories at face value. But when you actually examine the evidence, things start to look a little different.
Right. It's like anything else. You can't just accept what you see or hear without doing a little digging yourself.
Exactly. And this whole conversation has got me thinking, if we were to try and fake a moon landing today, with all the technology we have now, would it be easier or actually harder?
That is a good question. Because you would think with CGI and all that, it would be easier. But then again, people are more aware of those things now, so maybe you'd have to be even more clever to pull it off.
That's a really interesting point. Like, would we make the same choices? Or would we have to get even more creative with our deception?
Right. Food for thought. And that's what makes this whole topic so fascinating. It pushes us to question, to explore, and to keep an open mind.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder the possibilities. Always remember to question, to research, and to never stop exploring the world around you. Thanks for joining us for this lunar deep dive.
Until next time.